Hey, it's Chris Doucher for GeekNerdNet.com. I'm at the 2024 Calgary Expo, and really pleased to be sitting here with Jackson Lanzing. Hello, Jackson.
Hey, what's up? I apologize for my very thin voice.
That's okay. Your Hive Mind creative partner, Collin Kelly, unfortunately had to leave the show a little early. That's okay. We'll chat about the book, the new book, The Principles of Necromancy. Before we get to that really quick, I mean, the plethora of work, I can't go through the whole list, but like from Star Trek to Guardians of the Galaxy to everything in between, I mean, you guys have made a mark in the industry that, seriously, I know you've heard this a million times, but it's so super cool. We first met, the three of us, I met you two at Fan Expo San Francisco 2023, and we did a panel, and I learned a lot about you guys then. It was so much fun. So I would say if anyone listening get a chance to see you guys at the show, definitely go see you. Of course.
We try to make it worth people's time. I mean, we come all the way out for these shows, and we want to meet fans, and we want them to meet us. So obviously, whenever anybody wants to come up, we're very friendly. Love to hang out.
And so, like, I'll get to the new book, I promise, in a second. But in terms of iconic properties you've worked on, you know, you guys talk about how
I'm literally going to be pitching the book on the podcast, so just listen, and then you'll know what's going on.
And you guys have talked about how you know, you could start writing and then Colin can take over, and then you can't even find that transition. That's how in tune you guys are. Talk about how you do that on even different big books, like from Batman Beyond to Guardians to Star Trek, like to everything, right?
So the way that it works for Colin and I is the same across the board, which is that effectively everything we do comes out of a conversation. We talk about what we love. We talk about what we think will be interesting. We talk about what we think will be shocking or new or unique. And eventually when we discover whatever that crossover is between what he loves and what I love, that's how we know we have a story that's worth telling. And at that point, we break it all down. We build what we call a pagination document, which basically tells us what happens on every page. And then we literally split it up. We go, hey, do you want to do the front or the back? And then we write the book from there. And because we've been working together for 15 years, because we have he's my best friend, because we have an enormous amount of respect for one another. Thank you very much, man. Enjoy. You want me to sign him real quick? Give me 1 second.
Yeah, no worries. Go ahead. No, don't apologize. It's all good. There's commerce happening in front of me. It's fantastic. The Principles of Necromancy, Jackson Lanzing, Collin Kelly. It absolutely looks like such a gorgeous book from Magma, and you got to check it out. A lot of people are checking it out, so it's pretty exciting. Okay, back to you.
So, effectively, we create these pagination documents. We build a way to say, okay, you're going to do the first half of the book, I'm going to do the second half of the book. And then from that point, it really does simply become a matter of does the thing connect at the hinge? Because ultimately what Colin does and what I do are very similar. And so we mesh our work. Hey, what's up? We mesh very, very similarly. And it does end up being a thing where if his work comes in and it's very, very different than what I expected, or if my work comes in and it's very, very different than what he expected, then we'll have that conversation and we'll talk about, I don't really think this scene's going to work, or like, we're doing the same thing at the beginning and the end, and we really need to make sure that this feels distinct or whatever. Like, we'll have those conversations, but generally that doesn't happen. Generally, we've worked all that out in outline, and then it's just a matter of how do we turn that into something that is inherently whole and that feels like it's of both of our voices. The other magic sauce to that is playlists. As we bounce from playlist to playlist, that helps us figure out how do we calibrate tone. Because like writing something like Star Trek is very different than writing something like Clayface One Bad Day, which is very different than writing something like Guardians, which is very different than writing something like we're doing NYX coming up. That has a totally different vibe. And obviously Principles has a very different vibe than all of those because it's our first horror book. So we really do pivot all around. And so what we do is we try to make sure that we have playlists that dial us into that tone and help us both know what the tone of the book is supposed to be.
Yeah, that's super cool. I absolutely love that. Now, okay, let's get to the creator-owned book, The Principles of Necromancy. Talk about issue 1. Talk about the concept when you guys came up with it and where we are now. We're almost on issue 2. You said May 15th. Yeah. Go for it, man.
It's incredible that this book exists. Principles is the story of... it's our first creator-owned work in like 8 years. It's our first time doing something that we've owned in a very long time, really since anybody knew who the heck we were in comics. So it's been a really lovely thing to return to that and do something risky and different and weird, which is where we feel the most comfortable. I think if we're doing something something that we can see on the shelves somewhere else, something has gone terribly wrong. We really love to push ourselves and do something weird and different. And so that's where Principles comes from. Principles is the story of a world where it's sort of a Conan-style fantasy universe, but with a big twist, which is that there is no magic at all. There are just people doing horrible things to one another. And the closest thing there is to magic in this universe is medicine. The doctors in this universe are wizards. And like wizards, there's a limited number of them. There's only 20 of them. They all belong to the city hospital. They're all in the sort of quote-unquote civilized part of the world. And they have dedicated themselves to curing all of mankind's ills with effectively hundreds of years advanced medical medicine. So they have our kind of medical medicine, but they live in this medieval fantasy universe, which makes them very, very powerful, but also very mercurial. The story is about the youngest of these doctors, the newest one, a guy named Dr. Jacob Eyes. And Dr. Eyes has gone out into the world to try to cure something that no one else has managed to cure, which is death itself. And so Principles of Necromancy is quite literally the story of this world's first necromancer, as he writes the principles of his new medical field, but does so entirely with science, with surgery, with the scientific method, with experimentation and failure. And each book you're going to sort of see those experimentations and those failures, and that those principles begin to firm up and get codified as he becomes this necromancer.
Very cool, man. And the one thing too, I love the concept, I love the story behind that you just explained. I can't wait to read it, by the way. The one thing I was going to say, of course, the one thing I was going to say too was I flipped through the book, and you were showing me a bit on day one of the show that the look of the characters is just so striking in so many ways. Yeah. Now, do you and Collin sit back and just throw, okay, I want it to look like this, or I want it to look like that, or like you're dealing, like you're on with your artist? Like how does that come about for the characters? How defined, I guess, do you guys make them before you talk to your artist, or vice versa?
We try to not define anything too far before we get to the artist, because we've learned over a long period of time that artists are your partners in this. They are not. Totally. There is nothing. There's no part of this that doesn't generate from the artist. I really tend to tell artists, like, you're the center of the piece. What we're trying to do is inspire you to do your best work. So what we tend to do is we get up to the point of specificity, and then we get on with the artist and start talking about it with them. So with Eamon, for instance, so Eamon Winkle is our artist on this.
Sorry, I failed to mention.
No, you're fine.
Sorry.
So Eamon Winkle, great new artist. This is his first sequential work. He's really got sort of like a Greg Capullo meets Kelly Jones vibe. I really think it's a wonderful bit of work. And he's very unique, and he really has his own style. And the thing that Eamon, we meet up every week, Wednesday afternoons. All three of us get on a Zoom together, and we just chat. And we talk about what he's doing on his art side. We talk about what we're doing on the scripting side. We all share ideas. We bounce off of each other. We ideally come up with some cool ideas. And then Eamon goes to the lab and comes back with incredible work. And by and large, we don't have a lot to say about that work once it's done. Like, we give him some very basic notes every once in a while. We definitely do design passes on the characters. But Dr. Eyes, for instance, was pretty quickly there. Like, he did a whole bunch of faces, but he had it in one. He did a whole bunch of surgical masks, but he had it in one. The sort of iconic whalebone skull mask that he wears that you'll see on the cover of issue 1 and really the cover of every issue, because I think it's kind of our iconic. That's our look. That's our bat symbol, right?
Yeah. I like the way you put that. That's cool, man.
So that mask is the sort of center of the book's symbology, and I think he got it right away, and has just been pushing to make it more practical, more gritty, more interesting. And then the other fun thing about Principles is that every issue is different. So issue 1 is all barbarians and knights and woods and snow and body horror in that respect. But issue 2 is a much quieter story about a young girl who finds Dr. Eyes because her mother needs a doctor and is pulled into his world almost as his protege. And that's a completely different encounter. And by seeing it through her eyes rather than through the eyes of the barbarians who he, spoiler alert, experiments on quite a lot, we get a really different vibe on who this guy is. Issue 3, you're going to see him through the lens of all of the doctors of the city hospital, and specifically his mentor. And from there, you're going to get a better understanding of who he is, how he operates with these guys, but also like what medicine means in the wider context of this universe. Issue 4, I don't want to tell you the premise because it's a spoiler, but like every issue, we're going to be going in and looking at him from a totally different perspective and trying to come away, ideally, thinking differently about eyes every time. That every time you're going to try to be getting behind his eyes effectively and better understanding who he is, made all the more difficult by the fact that Eyes has carved out his own eyes and replaced them with lenses.
Yeah, I saw that when I was flipping through. I'm like, holy shit, like that's like nightmare fuel. Yeah. And I love it. I'm here for it all day. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't hold back on that one. But I know you just mentioned issue 4. Yeah. Is it only 4 issues, or do you have plans like, hey, if this goes the way we want it to, let's keep going?
Yeah, much more the other one. Effectively, the way that you got to think about creator-owned comics is they exist until they're not profitable to exist. So for us, the hope is we go as long as we can on this book. We modeled the storytelling structure after Hellboy, because Hellboy is that thing where you can do a little here, and then you can do a lot over here, and then you can wait a couple of years, and then you can come back. Yeah. And then Mignola can constantly refresh that pool and do whatever he wants
which is awesome.
Yeah,
right?
Look, Hellboy is my
Very
favorite
cool.
comic. It's
nice.
Genuinely, I just think it's the most incredible effort of world building and storytelling and character work. I love Hellboy, and I really sort of bow at the feet of Mignola in that respect. So I'm really excited to try our hand at a little bit of that storytelling structure on Principles.
Cool. It's really cool, man. Hey, listen, congratulations on the book.
Thank you so much.
Actually, you know what? Can you put a mention note about Magma?
Yeah,
just talk about them because they're new.
Yeah. So Magma Comics is the publisher behind Principles, and also Scale Trade, and also Silicon Bandits, and also this really awesome looking book called Greaser that Derek Robertson's writing. They're doing a lot of really interesting stuff over there. They are 4 people from IDW, so it's Denton Tipton, Bobby Curnow, Joel Eladz, and Mike Ford all came out from IDW and started this company in order to make nothing more than great comics. They don't take your rights. They're not trying to be a film studio. They're not trying to do any of this IP generation garbage that so many of these other comic publishers are secretly trying to do. No, they are above board. All they want to do is make great comics. Their deal has been wonderful. They've treated us excellently. For creators who are listening, I really cannot stress enough how great Magma is and how much you should take the chance on them. For readers, the best thing you can do is go to your local store and tell your local store to order from them, because new publishers, there's a new publisher on the block every day. And while Magma is much more legit than a lot of these, that doesn't necessarily mean that your store is pulling these books. You might not be able to find Principles on your bookshelves because it's a new publisher and they need to get ordered. So I would recommend, really, if you hear this and any of this sounded interesting to you, please go to your local store, tell them about Magma, tell them to order you Principles, give a chance to the book and see if it vibes for you, because you really will be supporting the most independent of comics.
Super awesome, man. One more thing before we go. Well, one, thanks for taking time again. I appreciate it. Let people know where they can find you guys, you and Collin.
So we're easily found on Twitter. I am at, or X, I'm at Jackson Lanzing. That's Lanzing. And you can find Collin at CP Kelly. I'm also on Instagram at Found in the Wild. But honestly, we're going to be revamping a lot of our social and digital platform stuff all around the Hive Mind, which is our sort of joint effort over the course of the next year. So all of that will probably change pretty soon. But keep an eye on those channels, and then you'll know when the new ones go live.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jackson.
Hey, thank you.
Okay.